Hey, what's up, guys? So we're currently on 42nd Street and 9th Ave. This is Hell's Kitchen, and we're gonna go for a little walk. So right now we're walking up 9th Ave. And we're about to hit 43rd Street. I'm going to show you guys a little bit of a tour of Hell's Kitchen. There's a couple of places I want to walk by and show you. It's hard because I got to go on the next street to the left, but there's something right here I want to show you. So right here, this is Manhattan Plaza, big tower. And Manhattan Plaza is basically, it's like, no offense to the people living there, it's been a lower income type of housing. And originally a lot of the tenants lived in some of the walk-ups. Tenements, they were called tenements, and this was an Irish American community. This was the first, I believe, in the United States. So there was a large number of Irish immigrants that came to Hell's Kitchen. It was a very tough neighborhood. You can see Dalton's right here, which is like an Irish pub. And so we're gonna walk up to, I'm gonna show you guys, it's closed. There's a lot to see, there's a lot of places in this area to look at, but limited amount of time. So we're on 44th and 9th. And this is Rudy's Bar and Grill coming up. It's closed because of the COVID-19 stuff. As you can see right here, see Rudy's Bar and Grill closed. Oldest bar in Hell's Kitchen, one of them. And it's kind of classified as being a dive bar, which means, you know, it's like a cheap beer place, but it's pretty cool. A lot of characters, as they call them. You know, guys that have been going there for like 40 years. They get drunk in the morning. And really interesting people. All right, now we're gonna a lot of people have left the New York since this coronavirus. A lot of people have left the city, so I guess the edgy people are sticking around. And we're gonna head over to the 10th Ave. So yeah, Manhattan Plaza, I believe this is called. There's two of these buildings, and they were built, like I said, when the people got out of these tenements were pretty tough. They didn't have a lot of, they didn't have hot water. You know, they were poor, and they put these up, I think, in the 60s or 70s. You can see the old housing here. Of course, they've turned some of these into multi-million-dollar type of homes. But originally they were for poor people. Until the city got gentrified. And these are some of the old tenements on the right. Stuff like that. I mean, that's really the story of Hell's Kitchen. That's why it's called Hell's Kitchen. It's called that because there's been a lot of drama, crazy stuff happen over the years. You know, hundreds of people killed over the years in disputes, neighborhood disputes. This is back when it was poor. You know, that's the way it goes usually in poor communities. There's a lot of violence. And so over there is Hell's Kitchen Park. They used to be a place where in the 80s a lot of people would smoke crack here. And a lot of homeless people. It's all gated up now. So yeah, a little barber shop right here. A few people getting their hair cut. Now we're on 48th and 10th. So this is the, I think, Sky Motel. And over here you got a strip of bars, which this more of the turf for the Westies in the 80s, 70s, 60s. They used to have a lot of Irish pubs here. I can't remember the exact buildings. I do know some of them. This building to the left was the site of many incidents back in the 80s, early 80s. Yeah. I think this used to be a parking lot for the motel. And they had found people shot there who own restaurants and stuff. And yeah, it still exists, the Skyline Hotel. Same as it was 30, 40 years ago. Exactly the same. It's cool that they still have these kind of little mom and pop hotels in operation. Leaves a little bit of character in the community. And over here you've got, there's a liquor store that's probably from the 60s and 70s. Still there. This is like kind of the real Hell's Kitchen, as I call it. There aren't a bunch of luxury restaurants here. It's more everyday kind of people. It's a few homeless people out there. So on the other side, there was a couple of bars here. Okay, on that side. And there was where Eddie the Butcher Comiskey was executed by Mad Dog Sullivan, who was from Queens. He was from Rockaway Beach, but he would work as kind of a freelance guy. And he took out one of the Westies in this bar right here in the middle. It's some sort of it's like it's still a bar, but it's not an Irish bar. The one in the middle right there with the wood, that was where it was called the Sunshine Bar, the Sunshine Tavern, and that's where in the middle of the day Eddie Comiskey was blown away by Mad Dog Sullivan, who was one of the most notorious street characters in probably New York history. He passed away a few years ago in prison. And right here, this is, I don't recall the name of this building right here, but this is like a low-income housing, and it's been built, I think, back in the 70s or 60s, and a lot of the Irish residents had moved into these taller buildings and out of these little tenements in the 80s and 70s and 80s and into these taller buildings. There's a little bit of public housing over here. So yeah, some of the characters were Mickey Featherstone, who was kind of the enforcement wing for Jimmy Coonan. Jimmy Coonan's still alive. Yeah, so right up on the corner is the second building for Manhattan Plaza, and pretty much right in front of me, you can see right here, going straight up. And so the son of Mickey Spillane passed away here. He'd fallen out the window. And his dad was Mickey Spillane. I don't remember what the son's name was, but this happened years ago. I don't know, 5 years ago, 10 years ago. They say it was an accident, but his dad ran the rackets back in the old days, in the 60s and 50s, in Hell's Kitchen, because they used to have a lot of stuff going on here with gambling. And, these Irish guys would make a lot of money doing all kinds of schemes. It's a poor neighborhood. They say that you had a few options: be a cop, or a gangster, or a priest. And this is what they called the 590 Club, which was the headquarters for the Westies. It's the actual building. So I'm going to try to get a better shot for you guys. So in the 70s, this was the 590 Club. It's now like some festive yuppie spot, as they call it. But yeah, back in the old days, they did murders in here. And they actually executed a guy named Ruby Stein, who was a bookmaker. And
What up?
so yeah, he said something funny. So yeah, there's the area has been kind of rough over the years. It's gentrified a lot. Wow, they have a Target here. That's crazy. I never knew they would. The Target, they're really commercializing Manhattan. They've been doing that for the past 20 years. The neighborhood became an urbanista, kind of trendy, fashionable area in the early 90s. And it became a place for wannabe actors, wannabe artists, stuff like that. Mostly actors. You can see this fancy restaurant right here. And definitely not much left of the old days. That's definitely not existing anymore. Might disappoint you. There's a little bit left. I'll show you guys. So, there's people on rent control here. And they've been here since, the 60s. and they have rent that's like $100 a month. And then you've got these people that pay high price rents that have been here for like 20 years, 15 years. The neighborhood just started gentrifying in the early 90s. I would say about 1990 to 89, 90. That's about the year that the Westies had been taken down by the feds. The neighborhood was pretty much under their control. There was only like 20 or 30 of these guys, and they were led by Jimmy Coonan, who was the head of it. His dad was an accountant, and he went the other direction. I guess his dad was kind of bullied. This is the Ryan Community Center. It's an Irish name for you, Ryan. And he kind of took over. He just got fed up with the bullying of his dad, and he decided, by Mickey Spillane, who he took out back in the 70s. So he took him out and just took control of the neighborhood. So this area is famous for, I think he's in Allenwood Federal Penitentiary in Pennsylvania. He's an old guy. I think he's like 70 something. And yeah, this is their turf. This was their turf. I've heard there's still some relatives that live here, but they don't really have an active presence. It's not too much going on here. It's pretty quiet. It's an old butcher shop, old school. All right, what kind of crazy stuff is going on here? Let's take a look. Some crazy yelling drunk people. Try to cross again. I mean, like I said, it's not too active because a lot of people left the city because of the coronavirus. So there's a lot of, it's vacant, you know. There's a lot of people inside. This housing right here was put up for old people. It's like, what do you call it? It's not a nursing home, but it's like low-income housing for senior citizens. A friend of mine did a couple of jobs in that building. Does home theater installations. Told me about it. All right, let's see what kind of ruckus is going on over here. You got to be careful. These guys are getting pretty loaded. Yeah, they're just getting loaded. So yeah, I mean, what's happened is a lot of these areas have, in a twist of fate, they went from being super gentrified to back in the 80s again, in a way, because of these people leaving. A lot of people fled New York. A lot of people have been released from mental institutions and the prisons. They were letting people out of the prisons because of the coronavirus. So they're kind of roaming around the city right now, and it's a little bit dangerous. There's been a lot of incidents. I don't think it's as bad as it was in the 80s when there was just frequent acts of violence all the time. Now it's much more quiet now. And this is the AT&T building. This is a cell phone. Can't really see it too well. It's AT&T Bell building. And let's see if we can get over here. It's kind of the end of the line as far as Hell's Kitchen boundaries go. Technically, it goes up to 57th Street, and we are on 10th and 53rd. I guess we'll take a quick walk down here. We got 5 more minutes. I try to keep my videos a little bit short. There's a haunted bar down here on 11th. Actually, you know what? I think it's on 12th. Is it on 12th? I think it's on 11th. So yeah, a lot of what happened to Hell's Kitchen was it was notorious for, Hell's Kitchen. And the Westies ran it for 35 years. And they got taken out in 86. And the actors and artists came in. There's a couple of movies made about it. I can't remember the name of it. One of them had Sean Penn. It's kind of an emulation of the story about these Westies. But yeah, they were no joke. Absolutely no joke, these guys. A few years back, I did a little tour of the area and I filmed the Rudy's bar, which was pretty cool. I got some stories. I know these stories not just from reading books, but from actually talking to people in the neighborhood and bar owners, bar patrons. Of course, anybody in a bar has a good story. So I'm just going to show you guys 11th. They used to have a lot of car dealerships over here. And actually, my father bought his first car, or not his first car. He bought one of his cars back in the early 90s on 11th. Because this is where all the car dealerships were. And they still are. You can see there's one right there. So no one really talks about that. But 11th Ave was kind of a center earth for car dealerships. There's still a lot. There's still here. Okay, and there's a park right there. Now we're on 11th, and this area used to have diners, and 18-wheel trucks would come down here, pull over. Here's another auto dealership. Manhattan Armor. Interesting. What are they selling? They got. That's cool. What is that? A Corvette? Vintage Corvette. So they had dealerships, and they had diners, and it was industrial. It was not there isn't, it's still industrial mostly. Wrap this up in a couple of minutes. Pet shop. See if we could get to 30 minutes. Got a gas station. So, it's still pretty industrial. This is a kind of throughway to come into the city. And then on the right, you used to have the Intrepid, which is the Navy ship. Somebody was sitting in a little chair here with a guitar. So not too eventful tonight. We're on 50th. So, yeah, I guess back to the history of the neighborhood. They used to dump people in the water over there in the Hudson. And they would, slice and dice them up. And it was pretty gruesome, but that's kind of how they got rid of people back in the old days. They were tough back then. I can't imagine today what goes on, but that's kind of what went on to keep people in check. It's like when you go to a foreign country and you have a dictator and they've got to keep people in line. It's like another auto dealership. And then you got the old tenements on the left. So as you can imagine, you kind of get a flavor of the area, like the history and what it was and what it's not anymore. And like I said, there's still some old timers that live in the community. This guy's sitting in his car with a ski mask on, which is kind of weird, but